We're on page, what is 292? Thank you. Ve'elu Shemos b'nei Yisrael aboim Mitzrayim. These are the names of the Jewish people coming to Egypt. Eis Yaakov ishu beis ovo, with Yaakov. The word eis over here means with. It's in Hebrew. You'll see on a sign. It's like if you say if you see a store, it says Smith and Jones. So in Hebrew, the and in Hebrew is an S. When you see an and on a sign, it says Cohen et Levin, and it means Cohen and Levin. That's what the S. So Eis Yaakov, with Yaakov ishu beis ovel. Each man and his family came. So there are several points over here. The first one is fundamental, and that is that these are the names of the Jewish people coming to Egypt with Yaakov. Now these are married men with families. These are married men who have families. Yet the Torah emphasizes that they're coming to Egypt with Yaakov. That means that Judaism is built on a Masorah. It's built on a tradition. From the father to sons, even these married men are connected up to Yaakov, to the previous generation. They're going down to Egypt, but they're connected up. And you'd think that, as a married man, he's already got a family, he's independent. In Judaism, there's always this chain. There's always this chain that connects. And that's what we find, what we call the Masorah. The Masorah is the tradition. Even the word Kabbalah, which people think of mysticism, and the Kabbalah Center in Madonna, which is all just messed up. But Kabbalah just means, when people think of making levitation and making things float around, Kabbalah simply means it's a received tradition. It's a Kabbalah. It was received from generation to generation. It was transmitted, and that's what all Judaism is. So the first thing that the Torah is emphasizing is they came down with Yaakov. They come down to Mitzrayim. Now the problem is it says Haboyim. And Haboyim means they are coming to Egypt, even though they've already come to Egypt. In the previous Parsha, they're already in Egypt. The last two Parshas, they were already in Egypt. So why does it say Haboyim, they're coming now to Egypt? The answer is that this is going to be where the suffering of the Jewish people begins. And then, if you're living somewhere and all of a sudden it turns to suffering, so it feels like you've just arrived now. It's a new arriving. And the suffering is going to be every day. There's going to be a different form of suffering. So it's written in the present tense. Haboyim Mitzrayim, they're coming to Egypt, as if they're coming to Egypt right now. What's interesting is, you look at the word, it says Mitzrayimah. So Rashi points out, Mitzrayimah, sometimes the Torah uses a form. Instead of saying, what should it say in Hebrew? If you want to say they came to Mitzrayim, so what should it say? It should say Mitzrayim. Right? That's how you say Mitzrayim. And instead, the Torah Rashi points out that sometimes they'll drop the lamed and put a mem hey at the end. Okay, so it sounds like a trivia, an interesting dikduk, grammatical correction. But what the commentaries say is like this. You see, a final mem. You have a mem psucha, an open mem. That's the regular mem that you find and a mem stuma, a closed mem. So there's a medrash that says no slave that ever went to Egypt, everybody should have chumashim. Please, somebody distribute chumashim to the guys who don't have. A slave never escaped from Egypt. Once you got into Egypt, you couldn't get out. Egypt was closed, and that's why Egypt was normally called Mitzrayim. The first mem is open because you could get into Egypt. But mem, the final mem, is what's called a mem stuma. It's a closed mem. You can't get out of Egypt. And they had, according to the Medrash, they had at every gate, first of all, they were sorcerers. They were into magic and sorcery and that sort of thing. And they had gates where they had magical creatures at the gates. This is what the Medrash says. This isn't some current contemporary writer. This isn't Lord of the Rings. They had magical gates where they had, for example, at one gate they had a pair of dogs, another gate they had a pair of lions, another gate they had a pair of elephants. So if a slave escaped through the gates with the dogs would start barking. So everybody knows, the security people know they go down that gate. If an elephant started elephanting, I don't know what the word is for an elephant. What do they do? I don't know what did they bray? I don't know what do they bray. They pray. I don't. What's it called?
Neighing.
Neighing? No, horses neigh. Horses neigh.
I like elephanting.
Elephanting. Yeah, we'll call it elephanting. Listen, we can make up. Well, you have a right to make up words. We're American. I'm liberal. We do whatever we want. So I feel that it's elephanting. So that you have the Jewish cow goes. The Jewish cow goes, no. It's so old. So you guys are so little. So Mitzrayim was an impenetrable place. You could get in, but you couldn't get out. Here, the Torah is giving us, just in a word, the Torah is telling us, look what's going to happen to Jewish people. Unlike other slaves, they're going Mitzrayim. Look at the end of the word. It's an open mem at the beginning of the word, and it's going to be an open mem and an open hey at the end, because they're going to be able to get out, unlike other slaves who could never escape from Mitzrayim. So they come down with Yaakov. With Yaakov, they come down. Now, what does it say over here? Why it repeats the names? Ve'ela Shemos b'nei Yisrael haboy Mitzrayma. So if you notice, in the previous pasuk, it mentions their name. Previous Parsha mentions their names. Take a look at the very first Rashi. Ve'ela Shemos b'nei Yisrael af al pi shemenan b'chayehem. First Rashi. Even though it counted them in their lifetime, b'shmosam, chazar umenan b'misasan. It goes and it counts them in their death. Lehodia chibasan, to let you know how beloved the Jewish people are. Shenim shelu lekochavim, they're compared to stars. Shemotzian umachnisan b'mispar uvishmosan. God brings in and takes out the stars by name and number. Shenemar, the pasuk says, hamotzi b'mitzpar tzva'am lekulam b'shem yikra. By name, Hashem calls the stars by name. A lot of stars out there. And we say the pasuk every day in Psukei de Zimra. Those who say the Psukei de Zimra, we say Mone Mispar LaKochavim. What was the pasuk? The Kulam Shemos Yikra. He calls them all by name. All stars have a name. What does that mean? Every star in heaven has a name. Every star has a name. What does that mean?
Neshamos.
Okay.
Significance, value.
Yes, they has a function. Every star has a purpose. The stars didn't just randomly get there. The stars are there with a purpose. Every star, we have no idea. We have no idea. I know I told you there's all sorts of space exploration. They just got real close to Mercury. They got pictures of Mercury now. Good. Now I could sleep at night. I always wondered what the craters on Mercury look like. The big crater. Okay, that's the crater. Oh, okay. And they got They got close to a picture of the sun. They got within 293 million miles of the sun. Just a little bit closer, they get a first down. You know what? So you got within 293 million miles of the sun. Yeah, okay, shkoyach. So there's all, but it didn't get there by accident. There's a God who created it. That means every star has a function. The Jewish people are compared to stars. So the same way that they're brought in and brought out by God, the stars are brought in, the Jewish people are brought in. That means they're brought to life. And now they're going to die, so then they're brought back. So it mentions them by name. But there's another idea here. I want to come back to that. There's another idea here. The Torah says that if you read the Nach, King Saul was upset with Dovid HaMelech, who happened to be his son-in-law, by the way. Maybe that's a sign for the future. But King Saul, do me a favor, leave the door open there. Leave it open, push it open, keep it open. So at a certain point, when they have a Rosh Chodesh, there's a Rosh Chodesh feast. They sit down to eat on Rosh Chodesh, and Shaul HaMelech says, how come Ben Yishai isn't here? How come the son of Yishai is not here? Somebody who you do not like, you don't call him by name. His son Yehonasan, who's David's friend, he says he refers to him as David. But Shaul called him the son of Yishai because he doesn't like him. It's like in Israel they had the first prime minister, Ben Gurion. He and Menachem Begin did not get along well. And he would refer to him in the Knesset as the man sitting next to he would name that there's a certain Knesset member that Begin sat next to. So when he wanted to speak about Begin, he would say the man sitting next to Plony, whoever the other guy was. But he wouldn't call Begin by name. When you dislike somebody, you refer to, number 23 on the Lakers. I will not call him by name. I will not refer to him by name. Because, number 20, there's only one number 23 who is worth anything. And although I will concede that number 23 on the Lakers has achieved something that Michael Jordan never achieved 7 times, which is that he's lost in the finals. So that much I'll give him. But at the end of the day, when you dislike something, here it refers to them specifically by name. Here are the names. When you call a name, that means that you're a sign of belovedness of the Jewish people. So here you have the Jewish people being counted as stars. Now, a star has a function. And the lesson here is that every Jew has a function. You have a function. You look at the stars, it doesn't make it to you. Do you see, it doesn't look like there's much to get. You can tell the difference between that star and that star? Do you have any idea what the function of a star is? We don't know. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created up there because the world works through the constellations, the forces that God created. But is it cold? Is it too cold, gentlemen? Is it too? Is it good? Okay. You're okay?
It's great.
Yeah, I imagine. You look pretty comfortable. Every star has a function. That means every Jew has a function. And you stop and think to yourself, well, what is my worth? What am I contributing? I'm learning Kedushin, and he's learning Kedushin, and he's learning Kedushin. Does it really matter? They were all like, yeah, your Kedushin and my Kedushin, your Kedushin, our studying of Torah is different. You're accomplishing what you're accomplishing, and I'm accomplishing. Our contribution is a different contribution. And every Jew has to know that you have a function. Every Jew has to, you count, just like the stars, number one. Number two, there's a beautiful thought that I saw, that the Jews are compared to stars because we mentioned this before, but I think it's such a fundamental. Jews are compared to stars because when were they created? So the Medrash says that God created the 2 great lights, Es HaMe'oros HaGedolim. And the moon came to God and said, this is what the Medrash says. The moon said to God, how could you have 2 kings with 1 crown? You have two big lights. How could you have 2 kings with 1 crown? So God said, you're absolutely right. Go reduce yourself. So the moon was depressed. So in order to cheer up the moon, God brought out the stars. He says, okay, this is going to be your army at night. You're going to be the general of this army. That was a way to cheer up the moon, who was depressed, having been downgraded from the same light force that the sun was. So the stars, the very inception of the stars, what were they created for? They were created to make the moon feel better. And therefore, every Jew has a job in life. The people around you should feel better. That the role of a Jew is and you should ask yourself, by the way, I just came home on, what day was it? On Thursday, I think. I came over, Dovid Mincha, and I came up, I met 2 people in Shul. Both of I would call socially not nice. Just socially not nice. Just tactless, and they didn't do anything to me. Just how they interact. One of them said something to me. It wasn't terrible, but just it didn't hurt on a personal level. I was just disappointed, not hurt, not upset. I was just disappointed that I felt that you can't walk around like a Mr. Magoo just hurting people. Do you remember Mr. Magoo? Yeah, you remember Mr. Magoo? Mr. Magoo was this cartoon character who's got these big, thick glasses, and everywhere he goes, he leaves a trail of disaster behind him. I compare it sometimes to a woman driver, but he's everywhere he goes, there's a wreck of people. He's leaving a trail. There are people who socially leave trails of disaster, and you should ask yourself, every time you meet somebody and you have an interaction, did that person walk away from me happier or upset or worse off? Did that person have a good experience having spoken to me or a bad experience? And a person has a responsibility. Our job in life is to make people feel good. Somebody's feeling low, to pick them up. Somebody who's up, pick them up higher. Except Eagles fans. right? Eagles fans, it's open season on Eagles fans. So that's something else. That's a different category. And what's that?
Football team or the band?
No, the band was great. The Eagles, the band, the Eagles? No, they were good. That's the 70s music. No, in the 70s was still music. It all went downhill from there. So that's our job in life, that a person, you have to be sensitive. Did you really need to say that? Did you really need to? A person should ask themselves constantly. That's the idea. That's why we're compared to stars. A person should ask themselves. I want to tell you a story. There was in 1970. In 1970, there was a hijacking. I don't know if any of you have read about it. There were 3 planes were hijacked to the Jordanian desert. There were a bunch of Jews who were in the Jordanian desert. I think they were there for about 3 weeks. I was a little kid at the time. They were there for about 3 weeks. They took them off the planes and they destroyed the planes. They took them off. One of the people on the planes was Rav Hutner, who was one of the Gedolei Ador. Rav Hutner was a contemporary of Rav Moshe Feinstein, and he was there. And there were all these Jews. Now, they all came home safely. There was an 18-year-old girl who had been there also about 3 weeks, and she got home, and the day after she got home, a good friend of hers was getting married. So she said to her mother that, listen, I'm physically exhausted, I'm emotionally drained, but I got to go to this wedding tomorrow. I got to go to the wedding. It's a good friend of mine. Her mother said, you're not going to the wedding. She said, I can handle it. Mom, I'm a big girl, I'll sleep when I come home, I can handle it. Her mother said, you're not going to the wedding. She said, Mom, I could go, she said, that's not why you're not going to the wedding. It's not why you're not going to the wedding. That you can handle it, I know you can handle it. But at a wedding, the bride has to be the center of attention. If you go to the wedding the day after you were released from captivity, you're going to be the center of attention, and you're going to be taking away from that bride something that she's entitled to. Therefore, you won't go to the wedding. That's the type of sensitivity that a Jew has to have. I want to do the mitzvah. Which is the mitzvah today? What's today's mitzvah? To go to the wedding or not go to the wedding? What is today's mitzvah? So a person has to always ask himself, is this person going to feel better for this interaction or worse for this interaction? That's the idea. Okay. So, by the way, look at the word Yisrael. It's a very interesting word. Look at the word Yisrael. Ve'elu Shemos b'nei Yisrael. Why are we called the sons of the children of Yisrael? We are called the descendants of Yisrael. Watch this. Take a look. You see the word Yisrael? Fourth word from the beginning. Yud stands for Yaakov and Yitzchak. Shin stands for Sarah. Resh is Rachel, Rivka. Aleph is Avraham. Lamed is Leah. The 3 Avos and the 4 Imahos are all alluded to in the word Yisrael. B'nai Yisrael, because that's where we come from. We come from I always say the 3 forefathers. But that's an awkward. It's the 3 forefathers and the 4 foremothers. So there are, each one of them is alluded to. Again, Yud stands for Yaakov, and Yud starts Yitzchak. Shin is Sarah, right? Resh is Rachel. Aleph is, who did we leave out? Avraham. And Rivka. Rachel and Rivka. And Lamed is Leah. So all of them are alluded to in the 5 letters over here. You've covered the 7, the Avos and the Imos. Okay? So that's why they're called the descendants of Israel. Then they go down to Mitzrayim, and Yosef, it says, Vayamas Yosef, the 4th line, Vayamas Yosef chalevacha v'chol adorahu. They all die. Then in Pasuk Zayin, Uvenei Yisrael paru vayishritzu vayirbu vayatzmu bim'od me'od. The Jewish people increase and multiply very much, Vatimolei ha'oretz osam, and the land is filled with the Jewish people. So, the Medrash that says that we're having 6 children at a time. The Jewish people are having 6 children at a time. Yeah.
How many Jews approximately do they say there were when it says very, very much? Is there a number? Was there 20 million Jews?
Well, when they left, there were 6 million men between the ages of 20 and 60. 6 million men. There were 6 million kids. The numbers are like this. That's a good question. When they left Egypt, eventually when they leave Egypt, so 600,000 males between the ages of 20 and 60. So you figure there are the same amount of females. Then you have the kids up until 20, and you have the older people from 60 and above. So they make an estimation of about 2.5 million people. And then there's a medrash that says only 1/5 of the Jewish people left because 4/5 died in the plague of darkness. So that means there were about 12, according to that measures, there were about 12.5 million people.
4, and then 2.5 left.
Oh, 2.5 left. That's according to that medrash. It's not clear exactly what the numbers were. What's interesting is we always talk about 600,000. We talk about 600,000 because that was the Jewish men between the ages of 20 and 60. And when they got to the Red Sea, they were outnumbered by the Egyptians. According to the medrash, they are outnumbered either 30 to 1, 3 to 1, 30 to 1, or 300 to 1. They were outnumbered 300 to 1. Now, if you multiply 600,000 by 300, what do you get? 180 million?
Yeah, 180 million.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
That's a lot, 180 people chasing you at the Red Sea. Right? You look at it, it could be intimidating, right? Oh, hi, fellas. Can we talk about this? So those are the numbers. Here it says they're multiplying, they're having 6 children at a time. Now, I want to tell you an interesting Gemara. The Gemara says that, can I have a Gemara Avodah Zarah? There's actually a tractate called Avodah Zarah. Very interesting Gemara. Yes, some interesting stuff. It's, where is it? Not there? Of course, the one that we need. Oh, I forgot. I could get up. I thought I was attached by the cord. No. Here's one. Okay.
What does it say?
Yeah, no, it's not hard. It's not easy to find because it's got all that other writing. Ow, that's what I get. So that was for being nasty to Philadelphia fans. But you know what? If they lose, it's worth it. Okay. So Gemara says like this. The Gemara says that the philosophers, meaning the idol worshippers, they asked the elders, if God does not want idol worship in the world, why does he get rid of it? Why did God just get rid of all the idol worship? Get it out of the world. That's what they asked the elders, the Goyim asked the Jews, the idol worshippers. They said to them the following, if it was something the world didn't need, if they were worshiping something the world didn't need, so then, God, you're right. So then you gotta, maybe God would get rid of it. But they worship the sun and the moon and the stars and the constellations. God should destroy the world because of the fools? I mean, they worshiped everything. They worship the sun and the moon. In India, they worship, what do you call it? They worship cows, and they worship snakes. They worship mice. They worship, in the Oriental, some of the words in China, it's the year of the mouse or the year of the rat or the year of the something. There's all these, so then there's no world. They worship everything. Everything can be worshipped. God should destroy the world because of the fools? Rather, Ella Olam Kimin Hago Noheg. The world functions what we call naturally. And the fools that mess up are going to end up being with accountability. That means essentially what the Gemara is saying is that God leaves the world to free choice. Listen, there's a sun. You want to worship the sun? It's up to you. I'm not getting rid of the sun because you're misusing it. I'm not going to get rid of the cows because you're misusing it. Cows are there to be used. Cows should be shechted, and they should be put on a grill, and we should have a barbecue, and we should eat meat. That's what they're. You want to worship cows? That's your choice. You're misusing. Otherwise, there's no end to it. There's no end to that sort of thing. So then the Gemara says the following. Listen carefully. The Gemara says, really by logic, if a guy steals wheat and you plant it in the earth, by logic, it really shouldn't grow. I mean, what, you're going to benefit? You stole my grains of wheat, and you're going to plant it, and it's going to grow for you, and you're going to make, really, by rights, it shouldn't grow. So why does it grow? Because the world has to function normally. Then the Gemara goes on to say, if a man commits adultery with a married woman, by rights, she shouldn't get pregnant. By rights, she shouldn't get pregnant. But sometimes she does, and then what's produced? A mamzer. That we're learning about in the Gomorrah today. She produces a mamzer. Produces what we call a halachic bastard. It really shouldn't happen. So why does it happen? Hashem lets the world work by nature. And if a couple happens to live together and she gets pregnant and she's not his wife, then the child's going to be a mamzer. Okay. The Jewish people in Mitzrayim are having 6 at a time. 6.
Meaning like at one time, like pregnancy, six babies?
Like 6 babies. They're meaning like 6
They
babies.
don't have 6 kids at once.
What?
They have 1 and then 2 and then 3.
No. The birth, what was hard to understand here? A woman got pregnant,
Like 6 kids.
and she got pregnant and she was carrying 6 kids. And then she gave birth and then she had like little kids and they have a little automatic diaper machine in the house. And yeah, that's what it says. And that was only 1 birth.
The slavery was from Egypt and not the children.
What's that?
The slavery was, they were suffering from Egypt and not all the children.
Yeah, we're not sure which one was harder. Wait, just wait, guys. You just wait. You just wait. You think 6 are 1 is hard. I want to tell you something. There is very little as traumatic in life that rocks you as getting married. Like all of a sudden you're like, whoa. I used to make my own decisions. Now I don't make my own decisions. That takes getting used to. All of a sudden, say, guy, you don't make any independent decisions when you're married. You don't make any. When I got married, I didn't have sisters. When I got married, I was standing there at about 20 minutes after they're taking pictures. The guy, the photographer, is taking pictures. You got to take the pictures could drive you nuts. The pictures could drive you nuts. And at a certain point, I started doing like this to the photographer, and then I got one picture which my mother-in-law says I'm pointing to him. He was laughing and I was laughing, and then there's this lady dressed in white standing next to me, and she's smiling at the car. She goes, "Can you cut that out?" And I'm like, "Ooh, she speaks." Whoa, whoa, hey, whoa. Why am I being told what to do? That's an adjustment. 1 second. But then you have a kid. You know what a kid does to you? 1. I'm talking about 1. Where there's no dealing, there's no like discussing it with him. When he gets up at 1:30 in the morning, he's hungry and he's crying and well, you're going to have to get up because you got to wake up your wife to feed the baby. It's not so easy. And it's an adjustment. And it's a big adjustment. They were having 6 at a time in Mitzrayim. 1 second. When you make the calculation later on, there was only 1 birth, Shaya. Remember, she got pregnant again a couple years later.
6 more.
Yeah. Yeah, and then there's the Schwartzes down the block who got 60 kids. You got 18 multiples of things. Later on, you'll see when you do the math in Parshas later on in the book of Devarim, I think, in Bamidbar, where it talks about the Jewish firstborns. There were out of 600,000 people, there were only 23,000 firstborns. You do the math and you divide it up. That means for every 50 or so, there was 1 firstborn. So yeah, they have big families. Now, why was this happening? The Jewish people are multiplying. What's happening over here? The answer is, let's go back to that Gomorrah. The Egyptians were laughing at the Jewish people. They said, listen, if we have control over you, we certainly have control over your women. And we know that there was only 1 woman throughout the entire time that the Jewish people were in Egypt that they were violated. It was violated by an Egyptian man. Now, if Jewish women were being violated by Egyptian men, so you'd expect them sometimes to get pregnant, right? Mm-hmm. How many kids would they have if they got pregnant from an Egyptian man? Probably 1. Why? Because the Gemara says when sinners are involved, the world, olam kimin hago noheg. The world goes by natural law. Well, having 6 at a time is not natural law. That's a miracle. What, is God going to do a miracle for somebody who commits adultery? It's not going to be a miracle. So part of this is evidence of the fact that they are being supervised by God. That's the idea of 6 at a time. By the way, the world record is there's a woman from Morocco who had 9. She had 9 that actually survived. And
Did she? Were there more that didn't?
Yeah. What's that?
There were more that didn't?
No, I mean that there were no, because there are others that have had like multiple births, but not all have survived. She had 9 children, and all 9 survived.
Wow, it's called 8 is octuplets, right? So it's like 9.
I guess 9 tuplets. What's it called? It's called Run Away from Home. That's what it's called. Run Away from Homelets. Listen, I have 2 sets. I want to tell you something. I have 2 grandchildren, 2 granddaughters, sets of twins. They're different daughters. They're cute as buttons. But I got news for you. One is overwhelming, especially your first one. It's overwhelming. It's like it's tag elite, but at least there's two of you against him. So it's a tag team. You know, when the second one comes along and they're close in age, within a year and a half later, you know, it's a 2-on-2. You know, and if one isn't crying, the other one is. Then you have a third one close to age. You know, if one isn't crying, the third one is. You know, and if they're not crying, you are. it can be. That's all part of the fun. That's all part of fun. As they get a little older, you know, things get a little easier, like when they get into their 30s. But up until that point, it's like guys that say, "Hey, I haven't had a good night's sleep. I haven't had a decent night's sleep in 3 days." This lady says, "I haven't had a decent night's sleep in 20 years." Okay, so they have it. Okay, now let's go on. Watch this, because we're going to go into a little bit of Gamor Logic now. Vayakam melech chadash al Mitzrayim. By the way, the problem over here is, where does all the trouble start? Look at the pasuk again. There are a lot of Jews. Vatimolei ha'oretz osam. The land becomes filled with them. So you take a look at Rashi, and Rashi says the land became filled with them. Where is it? The Medrash says, Rashi brings down, Vatimolei ha'oretz osam. The Medrash says they filled the theaters and the circuses. That means the Jewish people, for a while, they were living in the ghetto in Goshen. Then they spilled over into mainland Egypt. Mitzrayim was the main city. But for a while, they stayed in the Jewish ghetto. Things were fine. As they increased and their money increased, they spilled over into Egypt. At that point, the Egyptians got a little irritated because the Jews were taking over. And again, this is a prelude to Jewish history. We see this in Jewish history all the time, in the rest of Jewish history. That as long as the Jews stayed by the Jews have always picked on. Which is worse, that we should stick together or that we should try to intermingle with the other nation? I'll get to you 1 second. The Jews, we should stick together. Either way, we lose. But what we've found through history, the more we mingle in and try to integrate into the society, then there's a bigger backlash. And the Jewish people, as soon as they spill over and start getting involved, the Jews are taking over. And then there's a backlash. Yeah, we're going to ask.
How did their money increase? Weren't they slaves?
They didn't start as, good question. They didn't start as slaves. They were living in Egypt and they had produce and everything else. Then the money started increasing. When the money started increasing, that's when they say, hey, the Jews are taking over. And when the Jews, as a result of the Jews starting to take over and become a little too dominant, it's like we're not interested. You should know we are not happy about being too public. When what's his name was running for vice president, the Jewish guy.
Lieberman.
Yeah. It wasn't like, oh yeah, hope the Jew gets in there. It wasn't. We don't want the Jew in public office like that. First of all, Jews in public office have to show that they're sometimes the people are most against Israel are the Jewish people in public office, just to show how fair they are. Fair means you're against Israel. And we don't want that publicity. We do everything behind the scenes, quietly, discreetly. The more public we are, the more of a backlash is. That we've seen over and over through history. Over and over. So, look at the next pasuk. Now, pasuk has, Vayakam melech chodesh al Mitzrayim asher lo yada es Yosef. A king arises over Egypt who did not know Yosef. Now, if you look at Rashi, wait, he didn't know Yosef. Yosef was the king for 80 years. Yosef was 80 years. He started at 30. He died at 110. He was the viceroy. And after Paro died, according to some, he was the ruler of Egypt for 80 years. So a new king arises, and he doesn't know Yosef. Really? He doesn't know Yosef? How can he not know Yosef? Take a look at Rashi. It's the right column, second bottom line. Vayaka melech chodesh Rav u'Shmuel. The Gemara says there's a machlokes between Rav and Shmuel. Chad Omar chodesh mamish. One says it was a new king, mamish a new king, literally a new king. V'chad Omar shenischadchu gzeirosav. Somebody, no, it wasn't a new king, literally. It was a king who made new decrees against the Jewish people. So it's a machlokas in the Gemara between Rav and Shmuel. When the Torah says it was a new king, does it mean literally a new king? Or does it mean a king who he came up with new decrees? He didn't know Yosef. Okay. So first of all, the Mefarshim say, what does it mean he didn't know Yosef? That means he didn't think about what happened in Yosef's life. What happened? Whatever they tried to do to keep Yosef down, he kept springing up. They sold him, and he came out of it. They threw him in jail. He came out of it. And eventually Yosef became a king. The more they tried to keep Yosef down, the higher he sprang up. So this king doesn't look, Paro, think, you're dealing with Jews over here. You're going to try to push the Jews down, then the Jews are just going to increase even more. You should have learned the lesson. You should have learned the lesson from Yosef. So that's what the Mefarshim say, Asher lo yoda es Yosef. He didn't know Yosef at Tzaddik. If you would have focused on Yosef's life power, you wouldn't be making this mistake, number one. But I want to ask you a question. Rav and Shmuel have a machlokes. What does it mean, a new king? He was literally a new king. He made new decrees. As we say in Gomorrah Shir, lemay nafkamina. You know what lemay nafkamina means, gentlemen? When you get to my Gomorrah Shir, you'll hear that a lot. What does nafkamina mean? A nafkamina means, what practical ramifications are there? For example, classic example, a 16-year-old wants to get a license. 16-year-old comes to his parents, I want to get my driver's license. So the mother says, no, you can't get a license, you're not mature enough. The father says, you can't get a license because it costs too much for insurance. Lamay nafkamina. What's the difference, what the reason is? Either way, he can't get the license, right? What's the nafkamina? If the next day, the father wins the Powerball at $1.2 billion, he wins the Powerball. Oh, yeah, you don't get all of it. You don't get all. You only get about $600-700 million of it. Okay, could you handle that? Yeah. Well, so the father wins the Powerball the next day. Now, what happens when the kid says, "Can I get a license?" What's the mother going to say?
Not mature enough.
You're not mature enough. What's the father going to say?
Listen to your mom. I don't know.
No, he's never going to say that. What's the father going to say? What did he say yesterday?
No money.
We can't afford it. What's he going to say today?
Go ahead.
Yeah, go right ahead. Pick a car too. Right? Pick a company. At $700 million. Father, that's what mean a practical nafkamina. What are the practical ramifications? Are you getting a cold because of this? Should we close the door?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
You're good? What are the practical ramifications? The practical nafkamina is, what are the halachic ramifications? Well, what's the difference? What reason you gave? Well, it makes a big difference. If you win the Powerball, then all of a sudden father's got a different attitude. Correct or not correct? You understand? That's what we mean by the practical nafkamina. Rav and Shmuel talk about this king. He's a new king. No, he is a new king, literally a new king. What's the difference? What's the difference? The answer is, let me ask you a question, gentlemen. What happens if I say to you, listen, I will sell you a brand new 7-room house. And the market value for a 7-room house is exactly $1 million. I will sell you a 7-room house in my neighborhood is worth $1 million. And you agree to it. A brand new house. That's what it says on the contract. You get a brand new house for $1 million. You come over to see the house, and you take a look, you go, wow, you and your wife walk in, and wow, this is really new. Wow, I love brand new houses. And somehow one of them, says to you, you mean no one has ever lived here before? I said, no, actually, we've been living here 15 years. But we refurbished the house completely. We put in brand new faucets, brand new sinks, brand new floors, painted the walls, everything. And then they say, no, we're not interested in that. We want a brand new house. Brand new house means it's never been lived in before. And I say to you, no. Brand new house means that it is like a brand new house. Because I refurbished it. What's the halacha, gentlemen? What would the halacha be in such a case? Is it considered a brand new house, or it's not considered a brand new house?
Refurbished. Consider refurbished.
Is it a brand new house or not?
No.
Gentlemen, too fast. If a rabbi asks you a question, there's always a trick. This is where the thumbs come up.
If something was there.
Get the thumbs ready. Get the thumbs ready. You're like, you have switch blades. Get the switch thumbs. Come on, you're messing with the thumb. Wait, which one's it got? What's the answer?
New.
What's the
It's new.
Huh?
New house.
Why?
Why? Because
Why?
that exact house.
No. What's the answer?
It's not the same house.
Guys, haven't you learned Gemara?
Contract?
No, man. What's the answer? It's a machlokas, right? And by the way, that's always a fallback. That's the safest answer for anything anybody asks you in Judaism. Always say it's a machlokas. It's the safest. 9 out of 10 times you're going to be right. If you're a guest at somebody's house for Shabbos, they say, would you like some more fish? It's a machlokas. What? Yeah. Okay, so there you happen to be wrong. But most of the time you're going to be right. Who's the machlokas between Rav and Shmuel? Because Rav says, you know what a new king means? Literally a new king. Because the Torah says, Vayakam melech chadash, it's a new king. What did Shmuel say? One of them says, no, new means he's got new decrees. But new decrees means he's called a new king. So from a halachic point of view, if I call it a new house, and it's completely refurbished and it's brand, that's a new house according to that opinion. You understand? It's got even a halachic ramification. It's got halachic ramifications. Okay, be that as it may, they's worried that the Jewish people are going to increase. Listen, man, if they're coming at 6 at a time, they are increasing. And then take a look at the next pasuk, because this is where the story begins. In pasuk on page 294, as the Jews, they start, what do you call it? They're getting nervous. And on page 294, second line from the top, V'cha'asher ya'anu also, to the degree that the Egyptians tormented the Jews, Kain yirbe v'chein yifros, they increased, and they, how does the article translate? They and they spread out. Vayakutsu mipnei b'nei Israel. Now the article translates Vayakutsu is they were disgusted. I think he says they were disgusted because of the Jewish people. I think that the word Vayakutsu comes from the word kotz. A kotz is a thorn. The Jewish people were thorns in their eyes. That's what Rashi says. Vayakutsu, where is Rashi? Kotsu b'chayim v'rabanu v'rabasenu dorshu b'kik kotzim. They were like thorns in their eyes. I think that it means in two. Thorns in their eyes means, you're resenting. Why am I working? Why am I a truck driver and the Jew owns the company? Why am I working over here cleaning, the Jew's the doctor and I'm the guy washing the floors of the hospital? The success of the Jews always bothers people. Success in generally of other people bothers people. And when it's the Jews, it's like having thorns in your eyes. They're sticking it in my eyes. And they're flaunting it. And the Jews were a little bit indiscreet about it. But there's another idea. What are thorns? What do you do with thorns when you have thorns in the field?
You pick them out.
You get rid of the thorns.
Right.
And what do you hope sprouts instead?
Rose.
Something more productive. No, roses have thorns on them. Roses actually have thorns on them. But where there are thorns in a field, so you want to get rid of the thorns so that something productive sprouts. That's what they felt. They felt the Egyptian field, we're just going to be useless thorns here. The Jews are taking over the whole country. And we're going to be like, we're an afterthought. So that's why they're like thorns to the Jewish people. So what did they do? There's a response to what do you do. What do you do when the Jews, you ever see there's a famous picture in Austria in the Holocaust, there's a very famous picture of the Jews are on the streets, scrubbing the streets, and the Hitler youth are standing around jeering at them with the Austrians. There's a very famous picture. They're on the streets scrubbing with the bread. You ever see that picture? You know the picture I'm talking about? There's one response when the Jews are getting out of hand. So what do? Take a look, one more pasuk. Vayavidu Mitzrayim es b'nei Yisrael b'forach. The Egyptians put the Jewish people to hard labor. Now, the word porach comes from the Hebrew word. If you look in the Beis Medrash, what have you got? The curtain on the Aron Kodesh is called what? The paroches. What's a paroches? A paroches is a separating curtain. We need to create a separation between us and the Jewish people. And the best and most efficient form of separation has always been pick on the Jews, because then the whole society jumps on. You put them to work, you turn them into second-class citizens. That becomes a natural barrier between the whole society and the Jewish people. As soon as the announcement is made, everyone on the Jews, everybody jumps on the bandwagon, especially when the Jews are financially comfortable. Then everybody jumps on the bandwagon. I'll get to one second. Everybody jumps on the bandwagon. That's what avodas perach is. Avodas perach means crushing labor, which is for a purpose. It's to make a parochas. It's to make a separation between us and them. Once we make that separation, they're second-class citizens. Once they're second-class citizens, if you're a second-class citizen, everything goes. Then you can do what you want. Once we determine that they're second-class citizens, then anything could happen. There's another idea. You know what avodas perach is? There's one opinion. They were making them build there's speculation that the Jews built the pyramids, at least some of the pyramids. They were building these cities that were sinking into the earth. And the reason that's backbreaking, that's considered backbreaking labor, is because nothing is more frustrating than doing work that has no purpose whatsoever. And there's no end to it. There's no end to it. You don't even know when it's going to end. The halacha is that if you have a Jewish worker, you're not allowed to tell the Jewish worker that I want you to start digging. For how long? Until I come back. Endless. Because that's called avodas perach. Avodas perach means it's either pointless or endless. We'll have to elaborate on this a little bit more tomorrow. Okay. Mincha at